Hello guys and welcome back to Planet 40k. This video is about the Warriors. You guys did vote on it on our polls, our community polls that we got going on, but I'm going to sort of change the video concept up slightly. Instead of doing a refresher review, I'm going to instead just answer the big and main questions for every unit from now on, because I think that's sort of the more interesting part of the videos, or the part that I found interesting when I was rewatching the videos back. So talking about what detachments work best, what squad sizes, enhancements to put on the leaders and so on. That kind of question is what I want to get into. So yeah, we're doing our 24-hour polls. There'll be another one, there should be one live now. They're one-day polls, and yeah, in fact also random comment from the previous video, which was for the Scorbit Lord. We're going to give a shout out to Killermania. Everything you mentioned is what I came to in my conclusion fielding these guys. They have been my go-to response unit in strategic reserves, 2 units for 340 points, rapid ingress, and then have them rush an enemy unit on my turn to counter whatever they have done with an easy charge. So shout out to you, Killermania. If you want to get shouted out in the next video, all you need to do is comment down below on this video what you do with your Necron warriors. Right, let's get into it. So we're going to show the poll. We had 834 votes at the time of closing it, and 36% of you guys did vote for the Warriors. I actually thought the Qatar might win that one, but only 18%. Also a little plug here to a video we done, I don't know when it was it a year ago? We painted 61 Necron warriors using basically every single contrast paint from the Citadel Games Workshop paints, contrast paints. So every single one of those is in a different colour. So if you wanted to check out what the colours are, what they're like on our Necron warriors, check that video out. And yeah, give me a thumbs up as well on top of that. Right, so let's look at these Necron warriors then. They're of course the Necron version of Horde, or as close to Horde as we can possibly get. We can get units of up to 20 of them. They're not quite the Horde like Toughness 3 with a 5+ armor save. They are slightly better than that with a 4+ armor save as well as Toughness 4. So they are slightly better than those Gaunts and Guardians and Guardsmen and so on. So let's get into the first question then. Why do we need Necron warriors? Why do we need them? For me, it's about clogging up the battlefield, having a lot of board control. You can have a lot of OC on the objectives, especially no man's land. You could be covering 2 objectives with your single unit, because there's quite a large footprint there when you've got 20 of them plus any leaders that you put in. As long as they're within 2 inches of 2 models in the unit, you can literally spread them out in a large footprint. They're also going to be a fantastic unit for zoning out enemy units that are doing their deep strikes and basic charge moves. Maybe there's units that are trying to get towards our Locust Heavies or Doomsday Arks, and if you've got loads of bodies in the way, they've got to shift them. They've got to shift them, and that could literally hinder them for 1, 2, 3, or even 4 turns before they manage to get through them to the juicy stuff. By that time, they've been out OC'd on the objectives as well. They're also battle line in their keywords, so they're going to interact with some of those Pariah Nexus mission cards. Some of them relate to doing actions while advancing or while within engagement range, or shooting and then doing an action and things like that. And the final reason is, well, one of the secret missions does involve battle line units. So if you've got at least one on the tabletop, you've at least got an opportunity to score that secret mission if you are losing on primaries by the end of turn 3. Now, personally, I do think Immortals are in a better position right now, so I would probably steer more towards the Immortals than Warriors, but a lot of people do love a silver type. Next question is, which leaders work best with your Necron warriors? Now the warriors can take a whole host of different leaders, and in a lot of the cases you can mix 2 of them together depending on whether they're cryptic or not. You've got Chronomancers, Imitate the Stormlord, Oracle the Diviner, an Overlord, or the Overlord with the Translocation Shroud, Plasmancer, Psychomancer, Royal Warden, Technomancer, and Trazyn the Infinite. Now, out of those, in terms of the Cryptex, I'd probably look at either Oracle the Diviner, a Chronomancer, or a Plasmancer. The Technomancer is good, but I think I saved that for the Canoptic Wraiths. But Oracle in particular has the 4+ invulnerable save, so when you've got 20 models that are reanimating, re-rolling their reanimation roll with their Numbers of Legion ability, with a 4+ invulnerable save on top, so the AP does not matter whatsoever because you've got a 4+ invulnerable save, so those pesky -1s, -2s don't do anything. They don't do anything because you've got the invuln saved, which is quite nice on a 20-man brick. The Chronomancer provides the -1 to hit them, which is also nice, as well as the additional movement. If you're advancing with these guys, that makes them kind of rapid. You can be moving your 5 inches, then doing an advance roll, then moving another 5 inches. That can get them quite far. And if you've got that Overlord with the Translocation Shroud, you get the Auto 6 for the advance as well. Unfortunately, it's not Tesla, well, it's not Assault rather, it's the Gauss Flayers or the Gauss Reapers, so therefore you can't advance and still fire. And then the other option I gave you was a Plasmancer for the 5+ critical hit rolls with the lethal hits. Probably better served with your Necron Immortals because of all the rerolls to wound and all that jazz. But if you've got 40 shots and your critical hits on a 5+ with lethal, that's an average of 13 lethals, plus all the dice that you're going to roll to wound with. That's a fair amount, and your opponent is going to roll some 1s and 2s in there to lose some models. As for the non-Cryptek units, well, we've got Imhotep the Stormlord. We kind of mentioned him a few videos back for CP farming. If he's in a Necron Warrior unit, it's going to be quite difficult to get to him, especially if you pair him with Orokin the Diviner, giving them an invuln save, making them harder to delete. You've got the 2 Overlords. The Resurrection Orb is in there with both of those models, as well as the My Will Be Done ability, so you could be using stratagems for potentially free, sometimes 1 TP, depending on how expensive it is. And we mentioned already the Translocation Shrouded Overlord gives you the auto advance of 6 inches. The best option though, I think, is the Royal Warden, especially with Warriors, because it's only 40 points, which is basically 2 points ahead, with the ability to fall back and shoot, or fall back and charge if you really wanted to. I think that's going to be huge to get your unit out of the fight phases, that are, unnecessary fight phases that are in your turn. If you're in a fight with a load of Orc boys and it's your turn, you don't want to be losing more models when it's your turn, right? Because your opponent's going to be they're going to be fighting first for starters, and then their turn's coming up as well, so they're going to absolutely batter you anyway. But the ability to fall back means you're still retaining OC. Your opponent's going to have to waste another fight phase or charge you, then fight you just to delete you. So you're slowing down your opponent's movement, slowing down your opponent's fight phases, and making them work harder to remove our models. If I had to sort of make a combination, it would probably be Orokin the Diviner and the Royal Warden if I was to take 20 Necron Warriors. Now, of course, you could have up to 6 units of Warriors, or in 20s even, because they're battle line, but you're only limited to 3 Royal Wardens and obviously 1 Orokin the Diviner because he's an epic hero. So you're going to have to get a little bit more tricksy with the combinations that you do use. What's the optimal unit size for Necron Warriors? This one's an easy one. It's 20. It's just 20. 10, even though it's only 100 points, it's just far too light. It's going to go down to a stiff breeze. It's just not worth taking the 10. 20 is much safer. You've got a bit more of a chance to reanimate, especially with the re-rollable reanimation with the Air Numbers of Legion ability. And if you've got other options around you, such as the Reanimator or Resurrection Orbs and things like that, that's going to assist with keeping the 20 alive. When it's a 10, it's quite easy for even small units to pick them off. And once they're gone, they're gone. They're useless. If I had 100 points spare, I probably wouldn't even take Warriors. I'd rather go with 2 Locust Heavies, or even a Hexmark Destroyer and throw an enhancement on one of the characters. I just wouldn't take Warriors in 10s. What about the weapons? What is the best Necron Warriors weapon to equip your Necron Warriors with? You've got the option of the Gauss Flayers or the Gauss Reapers, or Gauss. I always get that the wrong way around. Whatever, right? British, American, you know what I'm on about. They're both Strength 4 nowadays. One used to be Strength 5, one used to be Strength 4. The only real difference here is the fact that you can shoot the Flayers from 13 inches to 24 inches, whereas with the Reapers you can't. Even though you only get 1 shot per model, but that's better than no shots per model. The Reapers do get the AP, of course, but for me, I prefer the Flayers because the AP at the moment, well, -1 AP isn't that relevant because with the current terrain rules, there's so much terrain on a competitive board, especially with the Pariah Nexus terrain rules and all that kind of stuff and the way they're laid out, that it's almost impossible to not get cover at sometimes. So that would take away that -1 AP to virtually 0 AP. And basically makes it a Flayer. So I would just take the Flayers anyway, so they can at least shoot. If your opponent's, say, 20 inches away, you can at least take 20 shots with your Necron brick, 20 Necron Warriors brick. Rather than being forced to advance the units unnecessarily, I'd rather take the 20 shots and start pipping off models early to at least redeem some of my points cost back. However, this does change if you do take Illuminazares within your list and alongside your warriors, because he gives you extra AP. So he would put those Reapers to -2 AP, so even with cover, it would only revert down to -1 AP. When I've got Illuminazares, I take the Reapers, and if they're just going on their own, I take the Flayers. Which detachments work best for warriors and why? Now it all depends on what you want to do with your warriors, because they can adjust to nearly all of the detachments, apart from the Annihilation Legion because they've not got the Destroyer Cult keyword, but all the other detachments they can benefit from. You've got the Awakened Dynasty for the +1 to hit roll, so you're hitting on 3. For me though, warriors are not about damage, they're about board control. They're almost like an overpriced screen that's a bit harder to shift. And they almost compete with Canoptic Scarabs in that sense, except Scarabs don't have OC and warriors do. You've got the Obeisance Phalanx. If you have an Overlord in the unit, then you get the Obeisance Phalanx detachment roll with the +1 to wound. That's more about damage, and likewise with the Canoptic Court, if you took a Cryptek, you're re-rolling your hit rolls in the Power Matrix, that's also about damage. I don't think that's the best suit for warriors personally. So my preferred option would be the Hypercrypt Legion, because that's not about damage, that's about movement and board control, which is what the warriors are actually about. Now, with the Hypercrypt Legion in particular, you can use the Monolith. The Monolith is very useful, not for me so much, I don't use it, but for a lot of players with the Hypercrypt Legion, a Monolith is very useful for moving infantry models about. In your own turn, you could be moving them around. In your opponent's turn, if you lose a model, you could be using the Hyperphase Recall stratagem for 2 CP. Maybe it's 1 CP if you've got an Overlord in the unit with My Will Be Done. Makes it quite cheap, but as soon as you lose a single model, you literally teleport them back to base and keep them safe. And also there's the stratagem Cosmic Precision, which is everybody's favourite stratagem at the moment when you're playing Hypercrypt. And with 20 warriors, 40 OC, dumping them into enemy backlines on the enemy objective, 3 inches away from enemy models, that's quite naughty, because your opponent has to deal with that. They have to deal with that. We can't do that now with Catan anymore, but we can do it with warriors, and they've got to deal with it, especially if you've got Orokin again in that unit, 4+ invulnerable save, that's going to take them a long time. And some of the missions do rely on you having your home objective to score your CP and things like that, or just VP in general. So if you can take that, great, great. What about the Ghost Arks? What about the Ghost Arks? Because that's the transport that's only available to warriors as well as characters, of course. I used to love Ghost Arks, even at the start of 10th edition, when Ghost Arks were able to get into the No Man's Land on an objective, and even if they were within engagement range, they were able to do an action, such as Cleanse. That was my go-to back then. In the Leviathan deck, it was Cleanse, Cleanse, and Cleanse. I used to run 4 Ghost Arks, double cleanse in every single turn. You can barely stop it because they're quite tough, quite resilient, invulnerable save. However, I didn't used to fill them up with Necron Warriors. They were not with Necron Warriors. I used to put the Hex Marks in there, or Royal Wardens, or some sort of cheap option, or Illuminazares at a push. Again, I used to play Hypercrypt, I still do. Jump the Hex Marks out, end of your opponent's turn, and I can Hyperphase them away and Deep Strike them. That way, the transport capacity fulfillment is fulfilled before the game starts, because you have to have something embarked in the transport. So that's what I was doing. So that doesn't really reflect on warriors much, because I never used to take them in the Ghost Arks. Would I? No. And to be honest, I wouldn't actually take the Ghost Arks now anyway. So that's a big no for me. As for other synergy, we mustn't forget Mr. Illuminazares. He's got his bonus offensively as well as defensively, which is probably more important. The -1 to your opponent's, well, the +1 to your opponent's AP, -1, +1. Yeah, it's a +1, isn't it? It's so weird. Yeah, giving you a bit of extra defense, and you can stack that with cover because it's not a cover save. And if you're playing warriors, you're very likely to be using Illuminazares because he obviously interacts with battle line. You've then got the Canoptic Reanimator, which I quite like the Reanimator at the moment, giving you an extra D3 for your reanimations, and you can obviously re-roll those because warriors get to re-roll reanimation rolls. So very useful if you're taking the Silver Tide, because sort of on average, well, no, not even on average, you should at least be getting 4 models back a turn in your command phase, or whenever you reanimate, really. Probably more, maybe 5, maybe even 6 if you roll nice. But yeah, because of the fact that you can re-roll, you're not likely to be bringing in a couple back. Should be like 4 or so. What about the weaknesses to Necron warriors? Well, for me, it's lots of damage 1 attacks. Damage 1 attacks are especially strength 5 because they'll be wounded on 3s. And if there's any AP, that's even worse because we've only got a 4+ regular save. So any AP puts us to a 5+, 6+, and sometimes not even a save whatsoever. Now, I'd say the ultimate weakness, though, is melee units. Melee units that can charge us. We are not likely going to be charging those units. And as our footprint is so large, we're going to be quite easy to be tagged. So once we are tagged, we're not likely going to be fighting first because we're not making a charge move. So if we do manage to survive that, well, your opponent's attacks, those melee attacks from your Khorne Berserkers or Assault Intercessors, then you're not going to really hit back that hard. And that's, again, if you do survive. Even if you've got 10 guys that survive, that's only going to be 10 attacks, and you're hitting on 4s, strength 4, you're likely not going to do that much. And yeah, if you don't fall back in your next turn, you're going to get hit again. So yeah, most of the units that I've got on the screen now, like the Orc Boys and the Ryan's Leapers and so on, those kind of melee units will just go straight through. They'll just completely eat the Necron warriors for dinner. So they're the ones to avoid for me. Of course, there are shooty threats as well, the 1 damage ones at range, but at least you can shoot back if you do survive. And also you've got cover and terrain features, so that you've got a little bit more of a defense with that kind of stuff. But in melee, anything kind of goes. That is my questions related to the Necron warriors today. Let me know if you preferred this kind of video rather than the refresher review style video. And also make sure you're checking out the latest poll on our community tab, where you can vote for the next unit that we're going to be doing in a video.